Hello and welcome everyone to Tulsa County's Master Gardening presentation. We are Master Gardeners from Tulsa County. This is Master Gardener Cheryl and I'm Dixie. We are magic, which means we're Master Gardeners in the classroom. And our mission statement is magic provides high quality science education to students kindergarten through 5th grade. And we want you to take that information you've learned and share it with your family, your friends, and your neighbors. We're actually talking about trees, and our presentation today is tree time. And we have objectives, things that we want you to learn, your goals for this presentation and our goals. So first one is main parts of a tree and how they function. Trees have many uses. I think you'll be surprised by the uses we have for trees. And we have a responsibility to care for our trees. The main types of trees are deciduous and evergreen. And this is a wonderful photo showing both types of trees, the evergreen trees and then your taller deciduous trees there. So we're going to be learning more about those. Deciduous are broadleaf trees. In the summertime and in the fall and the winter, they are oval shaped or rounded. Okay? They have green leaves in the spring and summer. Then in the fall, the leaves may change colors and fall off the trees. And in the wintertime, they go dormant. So in the springtime, after they've gone dormant, the trees need a lot of nutrients to make more leaves on our trees. And those are broadleaf leaves, and that's the photosynthesis works with those broad leaves. The sun's shining on them. So they produce a lot of leaves in the springtime, so they need a lot of nutrients. And then in the summer month, they continue to be green. And here we're showing the leaves turning colors in the fall. And deciduous trees bear fruits, nuts, berries, and pods. And within those are the seeds to produce more trees. Evergreen trees or conifer trees are another type of tree, and they're more triangular shape. And it's because a lot of them like to grow in cooler climates where there's snow, and so the snow can glide off the trees and not damage them. Conifer trees are evergreen, so they stay green all year long. So they have photosynthesis at a reduced rate because they do not have to have that burst of new leaves every spring. Their leaves continue to stay on. Their needles, they're really not leaves, their needles are waxy. So they're waxy and they're watertight. That helps them protect them during the cold months. And then also conifers have cones, and that's where the seeds are buried, in the cones. Conifers also have a resin in their trunk that help them stay warmer during the winter months. Another kind of evergreen tree is a broadleaf evergreen, which I'm sure you've seen in your yards or neighborhoods, like the holly trees. And they are a little bit bigger leaves, but they still have that waxy coat that protects them during the winter months because they are evergreens also, and so they stay green all year round. They produce a berry, or some produce berries, which has the seed inside. The bark is different on a deciduous and an evergreen tree. A deciduous tree's wood is hard. So it's a hard wood, and so it has a smooth or coarse bark. It can be either or. The bark can be various thicknesses. In the wintertime, a deciduous tree vascular system shuts down or closes off, and it goes dormant, and that way it doesn't have to worry so much about being injured in the winter months. It doesn't have to have that protection as much as an evergreen tree. An evergreen has a softwood, and so it has a coarse bark and a thick bark, and that's to help it stay alive during the winter months. It has resin in the sap, and that resin is like an antifreeze for the tree to protect it during the winter months. And I think we're going to hand it over to Cheryl.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dixie. Isn't that so interesting? We see hundreds and thousands of trees every day, but when you start really studying them and finding out all the intricacies and the details on them, it's really very interesting. So we're going to look today with the parts of the tree. What are the parts of a tree? Obviously, we start off at the root system. What does the root system do? It holds the tree. It anchors the tree in place because it's got a very strong trunk that it's got to support, plus all its branches. So if the root system wasn't really very strong, the tree would fall over or blow over in the wind. So there are two different kinds of root systems. There can be a tap root, which can go down many, many feet, and it's a bit like a carrot. A carrot would be the major tap root, and then there would be lots of roots coming off it. And on the whole, the roots will spread out as far as the top of the tree is green. So they really are all underground, and they spread out a long way. So that's the root system, and we know that roots absorb water and probably some minerals that are in the soil as well. So those would be one of the main functions of the root, is to absorb this water and the minerals. So then we have the trunk. Now the trunk is the main strength of the tree, and that's what helps it stand up and make sure that it's really strong for the rest of the tree to hold it all up. The trunk goes up, and then of course it branches into smaller branches. Was that a pun, or was that just a mistake? I'm not sure. But the trunk will give way to branches as well. And then of course on the top of those branches will be green leaves. But what is actually inside the trunk? We have the bark, which is the protection on the outside, and just as Miss Dixie has told us, it protects it from the weather. There's thick and thin barks, different kinds of barks, they all look different. So very interesting, but it protects the tree. It's the outer protection. Then within that, we have this phloem. The phloem is one of the transport systems, one of the plumbing systems that we'll be talking about. And very briefly, that's what carries the food for the tree, but we'll talk more about that. Then we get this very thin cambium layer, and you can't see it with your eyes. It's microscopic. It's just a couple of cells, and those cells divide and make the wood, make the tree bigger each year. So very busy little area that produces the new wood. And then in the middle of the tree we have the xylem, and that is a plumbing system as well, set of pipes that will carry the water up from the roots. So the water comes up and the food comes down, and the bark protects all of this busy system going on. The leaves at the top of the tree are very, very important. They provide shade for us. They maybe have a cooler area when we are in the park. We'd like to be under the trees and in the shade, but there's more to leaves than just providing shade and cool. And of course, we look at the leaf of a broadleaf tree, a deciduous broadleaf, and it's flat, just as Miss Dixie said, a bit like this. This is only a model, but it has a blade and a little stalk that it attaches to the branch, and then within that it has all the veins, exactly as it's demonstrated on the model, and we have veins as well. It carries the food around. So that's all about the parts of a tree. So, as we said, we have this outer ring protecting the tree, and then in the inside we've got the xylem bringing up water from the roots, and magic happens in the leaves, and then the glucose and the sap and the food for the tree comes down in the phloem. And here's this tiny, tiny little layer of cambium cells that are making new wood all the time. So this whole thing has all these vascular pipes going up and down, carrying all the very important water and sap. So I said that leaves were very important. So here we have a leaf. It's just green, lots of different shapes, but when you look underneath the leaf, there are tiny holes, and these are stomata. And they are very important because that is where the tree, the leaf rather, breathes in carbon dioxide, and then with sunlight and the energy from the sun shining on the top of the leaf, and then inside we have these little chlorophyll cells, but we also have had water and nutrients coming up in that xylem, sucked up from the middle of the roots, all the water and the minerals coming up through this little stalk onto the leaf. So with the sunshine, the water, and the carbon dioxide coming in through these stoma underneath, magic happens in the cell. And those little cells are all chloroplasts and contain chlorophyll. Now, chlorophyll is very important because that is the center at which the photosynthesis takes place. And photosynthesis is basically the production of sugars for the leaf. So we have carbon dioxide coming in, the solar energy, the sunshine on the top of the leaf, the water coming up, and photosynthesis takes place. But when photosynthesis takes place, the glucose comes into the main stem of the tree or the branch, and what comes out of the stomas? Oxygen. Oxygen for you and I to breathe. So aren't we great friends of trees? We breathe out oxygen. The leaf breathes, we breathe out carbon dioxide. The leaf breathes in carbon dioxide. Magic photosynthesis happens inside the leaf, and the leaf breathes out oxygen, and we breathe in the oxygen. I think that's brilliant. Very clever, and that's photosynthesis. So, leaves are very important. They produce they have this chemical reaction of photosynthesis. They produce oxygen. But what happens in a deciduous tree in winter when all the leaves fall off and they're not producing oxygen? Do we have a shortage of oxygen in the world when we don't have leaves?
Oh, that's a good question.
Now think about it. In the northern hemisphere, we have winter at the moment, but guess what's happening in the southern part of the hemisphere? Spring is waking up,
right.
All the leaves are coming out on the tree, and they are producing oxygen. So although it's hundreds of thousands of miles away, the whole of the atmosphere is still sharing all this oxygen and carbon dioxide through the whole of the year, and the leaves are working at the moment in the southern hemisphere, and when it's our summer, our leaves will be working in the northern hemisphere, and we'll share the oxygen with the southern parts of the world. So it's very interesting how it all works together. And when you think of the importance of how leaves produce this oxygen for us, a single big tree actually produces enough oxygen for 2 people to live for 1 year. So if we were able to capture just the oxygen and put it in a bubble, we could probably live for that whole year. 2 people could live in this bubble, just breathe in the oxygen that that great big tree has produced. And a football field covered in trees produces enough oxygen for 18 people. I think these
That's
trees are
amazing.
really very smart and funful trees. Well, now we have made a model and we want to show you how the tree actually functions. So on the bottom we have the roots.
It's
and
underneath the soil, and I take the soil off.
perfect.
And we see.
And we can see the roots, and we've got a little train that's going to demonstrate the absorption of
Minerals and
water. Fabulous. Okay. So it goes up the tree trunk. Now we want to see what's happening inside the tree trunk. And this was the plumbing system that we were talking about, remember?
And you took off the bark, didn't you?
I took off the bark and the whole of the tree trunk. So now, are we coming up to the top of the tree? What happened at the top of the tree, Miss Dixie?
We have
All these leaves. And the
growing.
leaves were photosynthesizing.
Photosynthesizing.
So these leaves are busy absorbing carbon monoxide, sucking in the water that's coming up.
So the water's being brought up, and it's also bringing up minerals.
Minerals.
Stored.
And remember, inside there were the chlorophyll cells, and
That
all the
tree.
sunshine was on here. Very, very busy, breathing in carbon monoxide, breathing out oxygen for us. And hey presto, look what happens underneath the leaves where we have photosynthesis taking place, and then the food is taken to all the parts of the tree in this plumbing system. Well, this is interesting. A cross-section of a tree, I'm sure you guys have all seen at some stage, but it's like a page in history. You can see all sorts of things that have happened to the tree. Maybe a fire burn, and the years that the rings are very close, the tree didn't grow very much, but in the years that there were lots of rain, the tree expanded and the rings are far apart. So here, as you can see, we have a sample, and it's exactly the same there anyway. So around the edge, you've got this bark and this very fat cambium, this cambium layer is just in here, very, very small, and that's where the new wood is growing and making a new ring each year as the sapwood gets larger and larger. So this darker area is all the heartwood, and here is the very, very middle of the tree. So as I said, this is a page in history. Why is the middle of the tree not in the middle of the trunk?
That's a good question.
Well, there's lots of different things. Perhaps the sun didn't shine on this side and it was more on that side, so the tree was able to grow faster there. This could have been up against a building and it knew that it was a bit tight, so there wasn't much space for that to grow. Or it could have even been on a hillside. These are the top of the hill where there's not much growth, but as the tree is going down the hill, so it has to extend and have more space between each of those rings. This is an insect injury, and probably a nail was put into the tree at some stage there. And over here there's another little spot. Perhaps that was even a baseball bat being hit up against the tree, and the tree went ouch and it made a little bit of an injury. But you can see the amount of history that you can find from there as well. So, okay, so Mr. Dixie, let's have a look at these little tree cookies that we have. That's a paper birch, interestingly with a very interesting center part, and it's probably a type of fungus that's growing inside the tree. It looks pretty healthy at the moment, but maybe it's not going to be healthy for too much longer, and the tree will certainly die.
Then we have this awesome one.
Awesome, look at it. It's an African blackwood. The middle is obviously very black. It doesn't have a particularly fat bark, but the rings are so close together.
Yes, you can hardly see that each ring.
So it's a very slow growing tree all the way around. And
then-
oh, look at the interesting pattern of the bark of that
I
tree.
love cedar trees.
Cedar trees, they are. The center again is very dark, the heartwood is very dark, and an interesting bark. It's sort of got lots of lines on it.
through it.
Yeah. But a beautiful smell when you cut down a cedar tree.
Yes.
So from all of these, you can count the rings, and remember that there's the paler part of the ring and then the darker part, which is actually 1 year's growth. You can see the heartwood on all of this, the strong centerpiece, and the years where there's fast growth and slow growth, where the rings are further apart, and how the tree might have been injured over time and have insects attacked the tree, and that we've been able to see. So certainly a page in history. Okay, let's have a look at some tree products. So we know that trees provide shade for us. We love shade in the summer, but they provide many, many more things. Look at this. We've got a pear. So a pear would come from the leaves and the branches of the tree.
So I'm going to put pear there.
We have got toothpaste in here. Do you think somebody put this in for a trick?
I think maybe.
I think maybe. But do you know what? When you brush your teeth, there's very, very tiny grains that are from a tree, and those tiny little grains are the chopped up areas of cellulose. So that's important. We have tea. Tea leaves.
Leaves. So
I
the
think they come
leaves
from
of-
the leaves and the
of
branches of the tree.
trees.
Good solid furniture.
That's
That
gonna
must be
be-
from the central trunk area,
trunk
don't you
of the
think?
tree.
That's where the hard wood is for sure. And we have got mint, double mint gum. Gum. Do you think that could be maybe the sap of the tree?
I think
Probably.
so.
And paper. We've got pieces of paper from a tree. Well, when a tree is cut down and there's all that sawdust, you can press it together with some water and squeeze all the water out, and you can have a piece of paper. So paper comes from that, from trees as well. And what about Band-Aids? Band-Aids. The actual Band-Aid inside is sticky.
Kind of rubbery
stick,
plastic.
but rubbery as well. So do you think the sticky part might come from the sap of a sticky
I
tree?
think so.
I think that might be. What about a nut?
Oh, that's got to be from the leaves.
The top branches
Yes,
and the leaves of the
leaves.
tree. And somehow somebody put a diaper in here.
Diapers from
Diaper.
trees.
When we first learnt about diapers and what was inside them, I couldn't believe it, because there's cellulose inside here, and the cellulose is the very absorbent part of a diaper. Do you think that's important? I think it's very important in a diaper. What do we start our day with, Miss Dixie?
We started with coffee.
Coffee beans. Coffee beans, probably the top and the branches of the tree.
trees.
There we go. And rope. Okay, what about this rope?
Well, I think
It's tough, so it must be something in the middle of the tree. And since it's so long,
I would say the
cellulose, absolutely. Because if it was the trunk, we wouldn't be able to bend
No,
it
it'd
and
be
wind
more
it,
like
so that
wood,
wouldn't be.
strong
So it's
wood.
the cellulose. And here we have a pencil
And that has wood in it.
in the middle part of it. So the wood must be the
The trunk.
tree trunk. Absolutely. Okay, and I have found a popsicle stick.
Oh, there we go again. The trunk.
The trunk of the tree,
tree.
the wood
Wood
part
part.
of the tree. Popsicle stick. Okay, and fantastic. Look at these.
Oh, we love to play with balloons, don't
Love
we?
to play with balloons, but where does it come from in a tree? Maybe
Oh, I
the
bet it's sap.
The sap as well. Okay.
It's our responsibility to keep our trees healthy and safe. And we're talking about pruning the trees. If you have a damaged branch on your tree, or a diseased branch, it needs to be pruned off so the tree can continue to grow and stay healthy. And fertilize, we want to give it nutrients so that our trees will grow to be old and we can enjoy them for years. Some trees need more water and other trees are more arid and like drier. So it depends on what type of species you have and how much water your tree will need. So you need to know that information. But that first year when you're planting your trees, you're going to want to keep it watered so that it can grow healthy. And remove damaged branches. Oklahoma tends to have ice storms and we have branches that get damaged by ice. Those trees, if they're not pruned and taken care of, then insects and disease can go into those crevices and then the tree cannot continue to grow healthily. So you need to have that prune off to take care of the trees and prevent forest fires. Forest fires kill many trees every year and it also harms the animals that are living in that area. So we have to be cautious and careful with when we use fires. So we want to help prevent forest fires and take care of our trees that way. There are many organizations out there that can help us learn and take care of trees. And Up With Trees, Tulsa's Up With Trees is an organization that plants trees along the streets, at schools, at parks, and they also care for those trees. It's a wonderful organization we have in Tulsa that plants many trees for us. The United States Department of Agriculture and Forestry Services, they protect our forests and they also give education to the public about our forests and taking care of our parks. So it's another wonderful organization to support. The OSU's Master Gardeners, we also give out trees at different times when we do presentations, and also we have on our website and when the office is open information about how to care for different types of trees, the kind of trees you should plant in Oklahoma, how to fertilize them, how to prune them. There's a wealth of information on our website. Cities and utilities, you may see them driving around trimming trees that are by electrical power lines. They are taking care of the trees in our area. They also have information for you, so if you're wanting to plant a tree in your yard, another resource for you to go to for information about trees. And to support the National Arbor Day Foundation, this is a national organization, actually there's a worldwide organization that they're wanting to plant many, many trees to keep our environment healthy. And they also give away some trees at times. But that's a wonderful organization that supports our forests and our neighborhoods and to plant and take care of our trees. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Dixie.
Thank you.